Hello, this is JinkUFO, and so today I'm going to do a tutorial on a really cool program called Scratch, and it's actually a website now, um, and the URL is up here, so I will also have it linked, but it's scratch.mit.edu, and what it is, it's like a programming language program. So, say, like you can make video games in it, you can make animations in it. It's a bit like JavaScript. You have different functions, and this tutorial is I made it mainly for the reason because on the website, this is the website by the way. There's a ton of new scratchers on it, and a lot of them don't know what they're doing, and so I'm making this tutorial, and I'm probably going to link it in a Scratch project, so that they know that the potential that Scratch has. And I will make a series of tutorials, and eventually they'll get really advanced. So look forward to that. And so this is Scratch 2 or Scratch 2 point whatever. I forget what it is. But Scratch used to be a downloadable program that looks like this. Um, and a lot of people I know still like this program better than Scratch 2. But I'm not going to make the tutorial on this because you can't get anymore, and it's out of date. And there's a lot of stuff on this that, there's a lot of stuff on 2.0 that there isn't on this. Um, but just so you know that that's what it used to look like, and there's a lot of tutorials on YouTube about that already. So, say you want to create a project, so you just click Create, and so here we are in a new project, and so first of all, this is the Scratch 2 interface, and just like an overview of the program, there are different functions and blocks that you can create with, and basically there's enough blocks, or you make a program with a combination of blocks, and there's blocks of different types. There's, like, say we have this is a boolean block. It's like a sensor. So if we have like the function if, and we put the boolean there, then it will it will make whatever's inside here happen. But if this isn't happening, then what's inside here won't happen. And there's a lot of different blocks, and there's a lot of different combinations of blocks that you can make, and potentially you can program anything in it. I mean, there's a, like, it kind of has to be a bit physical, a bit static. There's a lot of things you can do with computers that aren't just like straightforward, that you can't do with this. But um, it's a very straightforward program, and when it comes to like video games or animations, you can make pretty much anything. And a lot of people don't know this because there are like people saying that there isn't a block to do this. But it's not about just having a block for everything. It's about combining the blocks to do things. And I'll explain what all of this is. So in the interface, this is the area. This area here, if I can maximize it, is the game or the project. And so what this guy is he is called a sprite, and this is the Scratch Cat. He's like the default sprite, and he's like the mascot. And but if you know what sprites are, they are characters that move within a 2D program, and and you can add functions to them. And the sprites are listed down in this area. So see, I have the Scratch Cat selected. He's called Sprite 1 because I didn't rename him. And I can also select the entire project, which is called the stage. So if I were to make like a broader form of the scripts, hang on. Yeah. So my friend just got back, by the way, and he might be making noise um in the kitchen because that's where my computer is. But anyway, so if say I wanted to do something that would affect like the whole project, especially in like these kind of scripts, or like the variables, the data, or these scripts, then I would probably do it in the stage. But if I wanted it to be like for the individual sprite, I would do it in the sprite. And so this is the interface for making scripts, and I didn't explain it yet. So you can make a script by dragging out blocks from this menu, and there are 10 different categories of blocks. There used to be only 8. So there's motion, looks, sound, pen, data, events, control, sensing, operators, and creating functions yourself. Um, Motion is like location. Looks is like just how the sprite, like the sprite's appearance. Sound is, it's pretty straightforward. It's sound. Pen is a bit like looks, except it's the sprite's effect on the area around them. So say if I said stamp, and so it's like a duplicate, but I can't move that thing around because it's part of the background. And if I just ran the clear function, it goes away. Data used to be called variables, but they added this thing called list. But I'm just going to call it variables out of force of habit. But basically, it pretty much is variables. Like anybody that takes algebra, like variables change. And in computer programming, there are different circumstances, and you have to account for like a ton of different potential circumstances, and you use variables to do that. Then events are like something important that happens on the project. So, like the green flag, for example, starts the whole thing. So most projects have this little thing here, and then there's also like when the space key is pressed, and so that can affect the project. Then there's control, which used to be in combination with events. It used to all just be control, but it's basically processing information like wait 1 second, repeat, um, repeat forever, um, if something, if something, or if not, wait until. There's just like the control is basically just processing information. Sensing, a bit, a bit like events, except it's minor things that go on in the project that are a bit less like user input. I mean, they're still these are pretty much the same thing, but like it's less towards starting the project and more toward affecting the project. Then operators are a bit like data. Um, or they're a bit like a combination between data and event and control. They process numbers, um, and like Boolean functions. So where control processes functions, operators process values. And finally, more blocks is like, say, like you have a really complicated functions that's made of a bunch of different blocks and functions. You can just say make a block and then name it block. Oh, very creative. And you put that function in this script, and that and that causes the block to do what that function is. So it's simplifying it. I think that's just a bit of a convenience, but I've seen projects where that is very helpful. Um, but I don't really use it that often. And so there's also not only scripts, but there's also other things you can do to affect a sprite. This is the image of the sprite, and so you can either have it's a paint-like interface. So if you have Microsoft Paint or Google Drawing, it's very similar. Um, I think it's a bit easier. You can zoom in really far. And the cool thing about Scratch 2 is that there are two different modes of which you can draw. It's by default it's in vector mode, so it's kind of like rendering, and it's very similar to 3D graphics. But there's also bitmap mode, and you can see it's very pixelated, um, very messed up, and bitmap mode used to be the default, but became vector became the default because it was glitchy. Like I just turned back to vector, but it still looks very pixelated. And in Scratch 1, there wasn't vector. There was only bitmap, and it's also worse bitmap than there is in Scratch 2. Um, but I think vector's pretty cool. The only the time to use vector and bitmap is like you use bitmap when you're drawing something like really detailed, or if you want something to look arcadey, then you use bitmap. But if you're doing something simple and you want it to look like a flash-based game, then use vector. And so that's it for the costumes. And oh, and also the sprite can change costumes with a function. Um, yeah, switch costume to costume 2. And also note that the stage has something similar called backdrops, so it affects like the whole project area. And then finally sounds. So sounds are basically just like fine polishing and adding, like music or sound effects to your project. I mean, like, as a programmer, that's not entirely necessary, but again, this is like it's for user enjoyment almost. So yeah, most good projects have sound. So there's the popping noise, and then the Scratch Cat has it's a meow. Um, Normally I don't work with either of these noises. I end up deleting them or leaving them to be not used. And I'm sorry, that's very loud. Okay, much better. Um, but sounds are important, and you can access them through the sound. I usually keep most sounds in the backdrop, just because it's easier to like store them all in one. But like, say a sound is made because the sprite disappeared, like they died in the game, then 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 you would use like a sound that's attached to the sprite, and so you can of course create more sprites. There's a library of sprites that you can choose. There's a lot of them. Um, and here's the vector ones, and there's bitmap, different. Um, and you can also draw your own sprite, so like that, and you can undo, of course. Whoops. And I'm drawing in vector now, pretty similar. And there's a ton of like tutorials on how to use these, but I'll make my own. And then of course you can upload images from your computer, and you can actually take something from your webcam. Not a lot of projects actually do this. There's actually like a function where you can use your webcam to affect what's going on screen. And so yeah, that's pretty much it. Oh, and this Scratch 2 has an automatic save function. So like every time you make a change or a few changes, it'll save. But you can click the Save Now button to to save the project now. But as you close it, it'll save. And and you can duplicate a sprite like that. Um, you can delete a sprite like that. You can make it bigger or smaller. Whoops. And I've a block help. That's good too. I've never seen that. Um, but these are the different mouse buttons you can have, and of course there's tips, edit, file. Um, I'm not sure what this is, and you can see your profile from the Scratch creative interface. Yeah. And that is the first tutorial on how to use Scratch. And I hope you guys enjoyed, and I hope this was helpful, and I will be making more tutorials.